Hello and welcome back to the Recordatron channel. Today I would like to talk about the Fender Champion II 100, El Campione numero 2. The reason I want to talk about this is because if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I'm kind of a pedal guy, and I also enjoy a good solid state amp, and I enjoy affordable amps. And I recently got this fella because I've joined up with a new live project, a new sort of band that's in the early stages, and I cycled through a couple of different amps during this period. I had a Marshall Origin combo. Love the Origin, it's a great sounding amp. Unfortunately the combo didn't last, and ended up having some issues. One of the power tubes went, and I didn't quite trust it after that, because you never know what the cause for that might be. It might be that there's an underlying fault which is just going to keep blowing the tubes, so I had to get shut of that. I also had a Orange Super Crush 100 combo for a bit, but it wasn't really quite doing it for me. Again, love the sound of the Super Crush, but I think it's the 1x12 form factor that wasn't really working. I felt the same with the Origin as well, which is kind of what led me to get the Champion II 100, because I feel like the 2x12, either a combo or a cabinet, moves air in a very particular way in the room, and it's very hard to step away from that once you've gotten used to it, which I have. And the dilemma I had at this point was, I don't really want to be lugging around a really heavy and bulky 2x12, and I need it to be sort of, versatile enough and have a decent clean sound so that I could run my pedals into it. And so I happened across this. I was sort of sizing up the Boss Katana as well, but the other player in my band at the moment already has a Katana, and I felt like I wanted something a bit different, so this is what we arrived at. So I want to sort of dig into this a bit, because I feel like most of the demos that are available on this at the moment are either sort of covering the onboard effects and most of the onboard voicings, which, they can be really good. But as a pedal player myself, I haven't really found a lot of demos that are like super that are very high fidelity or super in depth. So I want to talk a bit more about the sort of quality of life stuff that this amp has, and some of the things that might not crop up in other reviews, such as how the speakers are, which surprisingly they're actually pretty good. More on that later though. So yeah, I want to give a bit more of a perspective as to how you could use this, in a sort of a more intermediate sort of way, because I think a lot of the time these are sort of aimed at beginners. And I really don't think they should be, because they're really good pedal platforms, and I think you'd be surprised at what you can actually get out of it. I will say, I think the secret sauce with this amp is in the second channel, which is kind of surprising to me, because I was expecting to use this purely for the clean channel and not really touch the other voicings. But I think once you dig into the other voicings on the second channel, that's where it really comes alive, and I'll hope to demonstrate that in the video. So without further ado, let's just quickly whip through the signal chain, and then we'll get on to some sound samples, and I'll talk a bit in between them, so give you some more details about the amp. Anyway, on we go. So, quick word on the signal chain. We're coming into a ProDype Lannon dynamic microphone, and we're going into my pedal board, which is currently staffed by the Friedman BEOD Deluxe. Let's just get this cable out of the way. Get out of the way, son. And then we've got the Tube Screamer Mini and the Fender Reflecting Pool doing the reverb and delay duties. The Orange Fur Coat Fuzz and my Spark Clean Boost. Just kick that on when the reverb and delay are on, and it just gives it an extra little push, and then that's all going into the Native Instruments Complete Audio 2, and then it's going into my laptop, which is running Reaper. So just as a quick aside before we go into the sound clips, I just want to let you know what voicing I'm using. I've settled on the Princeton 65 voicing, which is very, very nice, but you can dial in obviously a lot of different voicings as your bass line. But anyway, I'll talk more on that later. Let's go into the Tele clips. So in the Tele clips there, I've tried to sort of get a representation of how the amp reacts to sort of riding the volume knob and adding a bit of dynamics into the playing. And I think it responds really well and quite organically to the sort of lower volume, lower gain, and then rolling the gain up and getting into the heavier sort of chords. Considering I think it's all digital as far as I'm aware. Considering that, it's very impressive given my previous experiences with digital amps, albeit probably not very good ones. But yeah, this has been a bit of an eye-opening experience for me, and it's very, very capable. So, yeah. So to speak a little bit on the sort of settings I've gone for on this amp, I have settled on the Princeton 65 sort of voicing, which is one of the Fender voicings. For my money, this is probably stating the obvious, but the best sounding voices on this thing are the Fender ones. What I will say is for some of them you do have to adjust the settings quite drastically, and sort of the bass volume on some of them is really quite low, so you have to dial things a little bit. So it's a bit weird really, because when you're switching between the voicings, it feels like some of them are really off-putting initially because the settings are just so strange, and then once you dial them in it's like, okay, yeah, that's probably how that's supposed to sound. But I do wonder if that's kind of what's put people off these a little bit, is when they try them in a shop or something like that and they switch to what, and it's just like immediately not a very good sound example. So I feel like that's something they could probably stand to improve a bit. But on the setting that I've got, and obviously you can dial in whatever you like, I feel like this is an incredibly good bass line to send the pedals into. I mean, having used quite a few different amps, you know, ranging from sort of higher end valve amps to, you know, very nice solid state amps, this can hang, you know. Obviously it's got its limitations. You know, it is what it is, but once you've dialed things in, it's very, very, you know, convincing. So yeah, I think you'll be surprised at what you can get out of this thing. Anyway, on to some more sound clips. So from the humbucker sounds, again, more of the sort of dynamics this amp seems to be capable of, and obviously just eats up whatever pedal you put into it. I think the Friedman BE Deluxe is doing a lot of heavy lifting, especially with the overdrive, but that's fine. It just shows that the amp sort of takes whatever pedal you put into it and spits it out in a really pleasing way, you know, in the way that you would want from a very, you know, nice clean channel amp. So I don't feel like you're going to put pedals into it and then they're going to sort of come out misrepresented or not sounding quite how you want them. It seems like a very organic and sort of articulate sound that you can just stack pedals into. You know, when I want it, I've got this beautiful clean sound of the Fender sort of Princeton-esque sound, and then the Friedman sounds like a Friedman, you know, so that's very cool. But yeah, anyway, let's go on to some more clips from a P90 loaded guitar, my SG to be exact. So before we talk about the P90 clip, a quick note on the speakers in this thing. They're actually surprisingly good. I think they are Eminence speakers from what I understand from the research that I've done. They're sort of Fender special design branded, so they're sort of stock OEM speakers, but I believe the supplier is Eminence as far as I'm aware. And they do sound like decent quality speakers. You can usually tell if things are like super OEM and they're like very much not a branded speaker. You know, you can tell that in like really cheap combos, whereas this, it feels like they are decent quality. You know, you could change them out if you wanted to, and like, you know, they might not be up some people's street, but I feel like I can get really good sounds out of them. There's nothing too no like frequencies that are really displeasing for me. They record surprisingly well, and they throw out in the room well as well. So I don't feel like you're sort of lacking out of the box. It's a very complete sort of package. So yeah, I might experiment with changing the speakers at some point, but they're decent enough that I'm not feeling the immediate urge to do that. But yeah, the P90s again just sound really good. It's kind of one of those things where everything I'm sort of putting into it is just coming out well, and you know, I think that's a byproduct of it just being a really sensible, good sounding clean channel that takes what you put in it and gives what you want. So yeah, it's hard to complain. Lovely chunky sounds from the chuggy bits and nice clean parts when it's clean. Yeah, it's hard to complain, especially given the price point. It's pretty wild. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to move on to a Jazzmaster just to close things out, and then I will talk a bit more about the amp and the quality of life stuff. Yeah, let's crack on. So closing things out there with the Jazzmaster lick. Again, nice sort of dynamics, takes the rolling off the volume really nicely. And then when you bring it up, it's just a really nice big sound, and it sounds big in the room as well, which is something I was a bit cagey about initially, because some of the sort of digital amps that I've used in the past, I'm looking at you, Line 6. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they do great things now, but back in the Spider 2 days, especially when I was a teenager and I didn't really know what I was doing dialing in amps, I think I probably got some pretty bad sounds out of that thing. But in this case, it really projects into the room, which is exactly what I was after, because I think using some of the 1x12s that I was using, they just didn't feel like they quite gave me that big sound, .tm, big technical term for you there. And this does. And when I'm playing in front of it, which I've taken it to quite a few practices now, I feel like I'm getting that big thumpy sound that I want. And I think a lot of it comes down to just it having two speakers. Obviously the amp is doing a lot of work itself because it has to project and cut through the mix as a good amp should, and it does. But having the two speakers, I just think really makes the world of difference, and that's where I'm going to sort of talk about the dimensions. It's not enormous. It's actually only slightly bigger than some sort of oversized 1x12 enclosures, and it's not heavy at all. I think it's about 18 kilograms, which is not far off. Well, I mean, it's the same weight as the Orange Super Crush 1x12, so it's not really heavier, and it's only slightly bigger. And in terms of its sort of width, it's actually quite thin, so it's really easy to get in a car. I've only got quite a small car, and it fits in my boot just fine, along with my pedal board. And it just feels like such an improvement over sort of the smaller size cabinets. So yeah, I think for the money, this thing is incredibly worth it. Obviously, you know, it's going to have its limitations. Some of the voicings probably don't sound that great, especially the higher gain ones. And, you know, depending on your preference, you might find things in it that you like less. But I think it's really hard to beat. Obviously, the competition would be something like the Boss Katana, which, you know, they're very good amps as well. But they are quite ubiquitous, and like pretty much everyone has them. So if you want something a bit different, and also you don't want to spend as much, but you also want a 2x12, here's the one for you. So yeah, to close out, I don't know what the Champion 1 is like. It might be less capable than this, because I know they updated the voicings on the Champion 2. But if you want an affordable and very capable amplifier that you don't have to worry about too much because you didn't spend a ton of money on it, I can highly recommend this. I think you just need to be making sure that you're using the right sort of voicing for you, and don't be afraid to experiment with the voicings, because you'll be able to, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find one that you like, and then once you run pedals into it, it's perfecto. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to stop yakking now and let you all get on with your days. But I just wanted to talk about it because it's really surprised me, and it's very affordable. And you know, I think those are always two good things in my book. So yeah, I will review something else at some point in the future, and I'll see you all in the next one.